Hello, my name is Denisio Butz, Community Content Lead at Cardano Foundation, and welcome to Roundtable Talk number 11. Today we have something truly special. Representatives from all 7 Interim Constitution Committee seats joining us. This is a milestone, not just because it's our first full ICC session, but because these members are the first to step into the role, giving everyone valuable hands on experience that will guide future leaders. We'll be diving into learnings, challenges, and advice for anyone considering this path. And the uniqueness about this is that it poses the opportunity to learn directly from those who've been at the forefront of shaping Cardano's governance. If you're joining us, don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel or on X. For those watching us on X, please retweet this session to help get the word out on governance. By doing so, you encourage broader participation and keep the conversation going. Turning to our table members, I think a brief introduction to everyone would work really well. I'd say let's start with you, Nicholas, first, and ending with Oscar. Just briefly introduce yourselves.
Of course, yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicolas Czerny. I'm the governance lead at the Cardano Foundation, and I'm also involved with, of course, the Interim Constitutional Council within the Cardano Foundation, where I've also helped with others to shape this process and write rationales and come to a conclusion when it comes to governance actions. And of course, I'm also involved very importantly in Intersect, in the civics committee there. I'm a voting member there, participating also in the parameter committee and a few other working groups. And we would probably need 1 hour to just go through all of them. So yeah, great to be here.
Thank you, Nicholas. Jenny. Oh, you're muted, Jenny.
That won't work, right? I'll keep it short. I'm here. Also, I can name a whole bunch of things that I'm involved with, but today I'm in the capacity here representing my team from the Cardano Atlantic Council. Thank you so much for the invite.
You're welcome. Oscar.
Hello, everyone. I'm Oscar from the Eastern Cardano Council, and I'm also currently working as a Cardano ambassador in South Korea. So for involvement and make enforcement accessibility for Korea community members. So, and I'm very happy to joining this important discussion. So yeah, thank you everyone. Yeah.
You're welcome. Sarah.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Sarah Yun. I'm representing Cardano Japan Council, and I'm also a Cardano ambassador. And thank you for this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Amazing, and thank you for joining. Jose.
Oh, hi, everyone. Thanks, Anisha, for the invitation and for setting this up. My name is Jose de Gamboa. I am part of the Intersect's Constitutional Council. And yeah, along with Nicholas and many others here, we've been working on shaping the way our governance should work. Well, should work now. It's really how it can work according to the Constitution. So what are the limits and what are the interpretations on the document that we've agreed that will rule us? I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Matthew.
Yes, hello. Yeah, so I am on the Eastern team at Input Output, and I'm also on the voter group. I was internal voter group for its seat on the Interim Constitutional Committee, and yeah, eager to get into this discussion. I think there's yeah, probably a lot that we've all learned over the last several months of doing this, and hopefully some yeah, learnings that we can even pull from each other as we sort of go over the experience.
Absolutely. And thank you also for joining. I think, oh yeah, by the way, for anyone tuning in via YouTube, thank you for joining. I see there are several already in the chat. And thank you also for connecting with us, interacting. If you have any questions for the panel members, please feel free to interact with them. We'll make sure that your questions are, let's say, put up on the screen and interact with you as well. I mean, Matthew briefly said that, tipped on that, and also Jose, you as well, about the Constitution, etc. And I think just to kick off, it should be a good practice to kind of start with a high-level overview. So, like, how do we get to where we are today? So, which of you here, for the viewers just joining in here or just getting involved in governance, which of you can just briefly walk us through the process? How did we get to where we are today, and what is this governance that we're speaking about?
Go, Nico, go.
All right, sure. I can give it a try, and I hope Jose, Jenny, Oscar, Matthew, and Sarah, you will correct me if I say something incorrect. Right. So we are now in this stage of Cardano governance where we have basically, when we look back, let's start again. When we look back 2 years ago, it was crazy to think about that we would ever get to this point, but now we have an on-chain constitution in place. We have a working on-chain governance framework with 3 distinct governing bodies, governance roles that make decisions on Cardano, right? So Cardano is now fully, so the on-chain governance model is fully implemented. And in this context, one of these 3 roles, of the main 3 governance roles, is the Constitutional Committee. And all 7 of us here represent one member of this Interim Constitutional Committee. And what is our role? Really, to quickly summarize it, is basically to make sure that the governance actions on Cardano adhere to the current Cardano Constitution that is implemented on chain. Implemented on chain, what does that mean? So you can, if you're technically able to, or if you are able to look at the different explorers, you can check out which current version of the Constitution is live. And we, as the Interim Constitutional Committee, need to make sure that all these governance actions, there's 7 different types of them, adhere to the Cardano Constitution. I know there are some details. Some of these actions cannot even be reviewed from a Constitutional Committee standpoint, but that is the rough, estimation here. So that is our role as the Constitutional Committee. And just to take one more step back, the Interim Constitutional Committee is in place since the Chang Hard Fork, so since the 1st of September 2024. And our term as the Interim Constitutional Committee will end, well, at the end of Epoch 580, which is also September 1st. So we have a term length of 1 year right now, where we, as these 7 members, where some of us were elected, some of us were chosen, where we had to, basically guide Cardano's governance transition and support it from this angle. So I hope that is a good explanation, but feel free, anyone, to jump in.
Is there anything, Matthew, any parts of what Nico just explained, is there anything you'd like to add, or you think that was missing, or Jose?
So not certainly not a correction, but yes, I guess maybe some added color too. When you in a blockchain, I mean, just in any blockchain, as far as this, really a blockchain, you have validators who have some kind of consensus mechanism that's helping them to agree on a ledger and a series of transactions. That's like the shared history of the blockchain and the things that can happen, basically, right? The kinds of moves that people can make within the blockchain. And in a little bit of a way, I kind of see the Constitution as playing a similar kind of role for governance, because governance is how we change the system overall. So how we actually change the rules of, what can be done with transactions, right? Like what are the ledger rules? What, updates to the consensus mechanism itself. And so when you're sort of steering at that meta level, you need some kind of sort of social consensus to say, okay, as we evolve the system, like what are our sort of bounds? Like what are we ensuring that we're shooting for, and also places that we're not going to go? So the Constitution gives us, tenets, right? Like things like the cost of transactions on the Cardano blockchain shall be predictable and not unreasonable, right? So if people want to change things in a direction that make transaction costs unpredictable and unreasonable, then that's something that the Constitution limits, and that's what the purpose of the Constitutional Committee is really to make sure that wherever we do go, as led by DREPs and SPOs, that it falls within the bounds of this thing that we've set as our sort of shared vision. So that's sort of the color I'd add from my perspective.
Well, thank you so much there for that addition. Anyone else from the panel who would like to add some extra color to the description or explanation?
Yeah, I'd add that the mission of this, well, both interim constitutional committee and the permanent constitutional committee that is going to be elected, is not only to verify the constitutionality of any governance action that come through, well, of course, the ones that we can vote on, but also to do it in a way that keeps the governance out of a no confidence state. So it's not just about voting, it is also about conveying the rationales in a way that gives the trust that to the confidence to the community and to the holders, to know that the decisions are not arbitrary and that they're technically sound and that they make sense according to what was agreed on that document of the Constitution.
Amazing. What I'd love to see really is, we didn't discuss this earlier, but is there a possibility that we can bring that document up in any way? Because I can imagine that the viewers, the people joining in right now, even the people seeing this and hearing it for the first time, might wonder, hey, what is this Constitution and where can I find that document? It's at least they have some sort of reference. But as we search for that, I'm looking really also here at my notes, because it's good to have that high level overview. Okay, here we bring it up. Perfect. Thank you so much. So, Jose, you just mentioned, or I think that was you, Matthew, you just mentioned a specific section in the Constitution where it states that certain changes cannot be made. Like, for example, the transactions, that has to be, yeah, here it is. Okay, so the purpose of this, correct me if I'm wrong, if I understood it wrongly. So the purpose of the Constitution is like setting out let's say the rules by which everyone should play, or kind of like the rules that governs the network. In other words, if now that the decision more or less is in hands of the community, if anyone comes and propose a change that goes against the rules set forth in the Constitution, then my question here is, what is then your role in this? Just to be clear. Jenny?
Sure. The DREPs are basically represent the will of the people, right? So it's important to know what the people want. And if it's not in the Constitution, there are definitely pathways into changing that further down the line, so then we can accomplish different things, right? But the Constitution, what we do in the well, right now it's the interim, but the Constitutional Committee's role is to, whatever it is that the people want to do, we make sure that it's aligned with the Constitution. And if it's not, it is our role to pinpoint it, find it, and address it. So then the community can either realign their proposals or find a different pathway into how do we change this document to make sure that we can do what we want to do. Because things change and evolve, and it's not going to be the same. What we value today might not necessarily be the same thing that we value 10 years down the line. So it is important to have that. So we keep each other, the balance, right, comes from what do we want and what do we agree that we could do. And then Constitutional Committee is the one that protects the rules by we had agreed to by.
Awesome. Thank you
and
for.
Denisio,
Yes.
if I may just add something here, right? It's also important, and I know we we don't want to go into the nitty gritty. I mean, we will go there, but
Definitely.
it's also important to understand that the constitution can be changed. And we already saw that, right? There is the governance action type new constitution, and it has a bit of a longer name, but let's just call it new constitution now. And we've already seen one of those approved, right? Where 75% of the DREPs, which is the approval threshold for this governance action type, updated the constitution from the interim that we had to the current constitution that is in place right now, that was voted on also in the Constitutional Convention in Nairobi and in Kenya, in Nairobi and in Buenos Aires, sorry. So, right, there is a way how things can change also with the constitution. So in case, right, what Jenny explained, if a current proposal is unconstitutional according to the current version, there is a way, you know, for that action to be potentially constitutional after a change to the document, right? But that, of course, is a very
There's an entire process for that, I guess, as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I'd love to hear also from you. Who's that? Sure,
me.
Go ahead. Yes, of course.
Yes. I just wanted to echo what Nico and Jenny said. So I think our role is to protect the Cardano community from the tyranny of the majority. So in democracy, any democracies, the US, South Korea, Japan, sometimes there's like a 51% of people want something and 49% of people maybe they want something different. But in simple democracy, like you just have more than 50% of people want something and it will be implemented. And the minority, a significant minority, 49%, will maybe suffer in that situation. And if the only 51%, then policies and regulations keep changing. You know, every elections you have different government, and then everything changes. I think Constitution gives more stability to that. As Nico said, so in order to change the Constitution, you will need 75%. It's a higher threshold. So what it gives us is that stability for the Cardano community. So what happens is that we came up with this Constitution for the past 2 years. We've been discussing since 1694, and we finally have our Constitution, and that was adopted in Buenos Aires last year, and then it was enacted on chain. So this is the will of the Cardano community as a whole of today. And this could change over time. But as interim and permanent constitution committee, our role is to interpret the document with the will of according to the will of the Cardano community at the time. And that could evolve in the future. But our role is to interpret and balance with what the majority wants and what the minority wants. And sometimes in the future, maybe there will be malicious attacks against Cardano, having 51%. We hope not. We hope it will not happen. But in that case, we can still say that it's unconstitutional. You can protect the Cardano community. And unless they have 75%, they will not be able to change the Cardano constitution. So we have the basic principles that we can adhere to, that we agreed upon at this time, and that can evolve. But our role is to really protect the Cardano community as the final safeguard.
Amazing. Thanks for clarifying that. Oscar, is there anything you'd like to add as well?
I think other member very well explaining this kind of agenda, so I have nothing. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. The moving on to the following segment, this conversation. There's obviously someone just mentioned, and that was you, Sierra, a new term that was now introduced. That is SIP 1694. For the viewers just joining in, just getting involved in governance, we've picked up pretty further along the line, but I'm pretty sure that it's always good to have that understanding of what really preceded the current as a constitution. So the phase before that, is there anyone who'd like to just briefly explain to the newcomers, what is this SIP 1694?
Briefly introduce about this. Can I say? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I
Oscar.
think. Yeah. What Cardano governance is the set of rules that help us reflect many people's opinion in Cardano. Those rules are defined by CIP 1694. So CIP 1694 is a standard for Cardano governance, and Cardano Constitution is the rules for our Cardano governance. So layer is the CIP 1694 is the fundamental layer, and Cardano Constitution is the rule for how Cardano governance operated by the specific philosophy and any other rules and principle and tenet. So yeah, and governance body is the law for the separation of power within this Cardano governance ecosystem. Yes, so this is my brief introduce about what is the CIP 1694 and what is the Cardano Constitution. So if the newcomer wondering what is the Cardano governance, they should reading about some CIP 1694 and Cardano Constitution. This is very helpful for the understanding the Cardano governance. Yeah.
Perfect. So you'd say anyone joining or now getting involved in governance, the best place or one of the better places to start would be to get familiar with the SIP 1694 concept.
Yeah, I think leading first is the CIP 1694 and then leading the Cardano Constitution. This is the more good for understanding this kind of ecosystem. Yeah.
Amazing. You see, I think a lot of people doesn't really understand the responsibility that comes with the task of being a CC member, Cardano Constitutional Committee member. There's a lot on your shoulders, right? I can imagine that the past 7 months, multiple governance actions involved that you guys had to deliberate amongst your teams to come up with, let's say, a decision. Be it deeming the governance action at the time constitutional or unconstitutional. And one of the things I'd like to know is just looking back at the past 7 months, were there anything you say that you would have liked to known before stepping into this role that you know today? I'm going to start with you there, Nicholas.
Thanks for putting me on the spot. I think, right, while most of us here on this call were really involved already in the discussions with CIP 1694 and designing this governance framework maybe from a technical standpoint of view, I think none of us really knew and could tell what kind of work was lying in front of us when we became ICC members at 1st September 2024. But for me, I think what was just really, really interesting was if it is way harder to review the constitutionality of governance actions than you might think. And that's an obvious thing, right? And probably everyone feels this way.
What makes you say that? I'm curious.
Yeah, because sometimes, right, especially when you read through proposals that have a very extensive metadata and rationale, you need to make sure that all of these aspects that are mentioned in this governance action, right? So the description, the problem statement, and all of these things, that they align with the Constitution. So this is really a step-by-step thing where you first, of course, need to be very well aware of the Constitution itself. And then, of course, you need to be also, read through the governance actions very carefully. And one of the things I think that I would have liked to know before doing all of this is, or what I think is super important, is to have a good structural framework for the process in your team. So who does what, and that you then also share the load, right? So that you don't have everything on just one person that writes the rationales or one person that takes care of social media, but that you really take care of sharing this responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good feedback here and also insight. I'm curious to hear also from other panel members. How did you structure that within your teams? The decision-making roles or the different responsibilities. Anyone care to give some
I'll
insights?
jump in here
Sure.
if that's cool. For us, it's been very organic. With my team, it's been absolutely organic, kind of like getting a feel of what we're all good at. Instead of imposing roles, it's like this is what needs to happen, and we've been kind of like stepping in and using our skills to lead in our own way. So at first it was a little bit more of a challenge because you're still getting to learn and how to work together, but by now it's just been very seamless. It's just we have together we craft a rationale. Somebody takes notes and then goes to the other one, puts it in the Kanban, and then opens a ticket, and then we review stuff, and it's like, no, change this, go there, and then it publish. So it's like all very hands-on. We talk every day. It's like I have to like mute my chat sometimes because it's like we're very active. We don't stop working on that team. So I mean, I have no regrets for us. I mean, when we did this, we didn't even have, when we jumped in this train, we didn't even have a constitution yet. Okay. So it was like really hard for us to, we knew there was a lot of unknowns. So it's kind of a little hard to think about what, I don't, of course, if it was today, I will say, please know the Constitution, understand what you're getting into. But yeah, now it's we crafted, we have our document, we have our processes, and for us, it's like one of my things, for example, I'll speak for myself. One of the main things for me is that's important to me is to make sure that we all have a formed opinion before we start debating on it. And that was something that I was kind of like very, very strong about that point, because, we have to mind for, biases and groupthink mentality and all kinds of things like that. So it's very important for me. And, it was welcomed, and then you realize that you can jump in there thinking that you have your mind set on something, and then find yourself that you're changing your vote at the end of the day, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So, yeah.
This is interesting. By the way, Mr. Murasaki, welcome to the Roundtable Talk. Everyone joining us today, this Roundtable Talk here is really set up to take learnings from the current ICC members in terms of what they've learned along the way during the past 7 months within this role. And it's actually a milestone because it's the first time that we actually have all 7 ICC members or representatives from all 7 ICC seats in the same spot, discussing their experience and challenges. And I'm pretty sure we'll get to many things. So, Mr. Murasaki, thank you for joining us. We're really happy to have you here today with us.
No, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome. I will be asking you a few questions in a bit, but I just wanted to let's say, circle back to you there, Jenny, because what you just explained, were there any, what would you say were the main challenges in the Atlantic Council when it comes to like reviewing many of these proposals?
Oh, like I said, it's our internal team with manager challenges pretty well, as we've been kind of very trusting since the beginning of why we're here, and that we all care, and that we all come from different places, and we all knowledgeable in our own ways. So that mutual respect was there from the beginning, which is really helpful. And it was a little bit challenging in general. Was the communication, to me, was more like how we communicate with other CC members as a bigger kind of committee thing, right? So I would say that to me has been a little bit more of a challenge, but in our internal team, we've been able to address everything pretty much when it happens. So there's no grievances, and just straightforward, kind of, I will say. And it's been great. Like I said, we have our weekly meeting, and we async a lot. So we use voting within our own chat for smaller things to try to like tackle bigger things. So break it down, and we rely on each other's strengths. We have somebody with military experience, which helps us kind of like, we have deadlines, even if they're self-imposed deadlines, and then to make sure that we're never behind, right? So we look at the rationales. At first it was like, okay, we're ready to vote, and some people are like, I need more time. So we started saying, okay, let's just decide if a governance actually comes this day, then we have this many days to review it before we actually sit down and talk about deliberate on it. So we don't rush each other, to make sure that we really gather information on our own. So that was a little bit challenging at the end, but with time, it just becomes a little more second nature.
Exactly. So the machine became better oiled, put it that way. Matthew, I will come to you in a bit. I just want to have just a short intro to Mr. Murasaki. Just joining us from ICC member from Emergo, but please, would you briefly introduce yourself to the audience and the viewers joining us today?
Yeah, thanks a lot. So my name is Shunsuke Murasaki. So my role at Emergo is chief of staff, but recently very intensely focused on Cardano governance front. So I'm pretty much covering everything: budget, ICC. It's not only my only contribution. I work with the team. So, but obviously covering, ICC and DREP, and coordinating with, because we are running stake pool as well. So I need to talk to the right people in an organization. It's really a fascinating area. And I think it's really an area Cardano shines in comparison with other blockchain. I can speak more about ICC, but that's essentially what I do. And I still remember the time I joined Emergo. That was 2017 September, and I really joined Emergo and Cardano because of this idea of sustainability and long-term vision, right? And it was very eye-opening to see the Constitution ratified in Argentina, because at the beginning of my time, there was a clear 5 phases, and it really came true. So it was really a amazing time that I got experience in Argentina.
Beautiful. Looking back at the let's say the 7 months, because basically you all are now in this role for 7 months. Looking back at those 7 months, what would you say is your greatest highlight moment? If I'm going to start with you first, Murasaki, and I'll go down the line from you to Sarah, Jose, Matthew, and the rest, please.
Well, it's really hard to say, but I think the answer is like every day, because every day new stuff, coming onto a table, and a lot of discussion. It's kind of challenging to catch up with everything. What's offline chat with like-minded people, and also chasing a lot of like online forum like Cardano forum, Twitter, a lot of discussions going on. Mm-hmm. But I guess not a highlight, but I think the net change limit, 2 net change limits that we are, I think everyone is now almost concluding, some of them concluded, is really our highlight to me, because a lot of Cardano community member wanted to see the annual budget, and there was a community, or shall I say anonymous, net change limit went out, and right after that Intersect casted a net change limit. So it's kind of beautiful to see like a lot of ideas, because one net change limit talks about 300 and 2026 250, but Intersect one is 350. So it's kind of very diverse to see a lot of opinions, and we do have a right forum for getting everyone to discuss and conclude. So it has not been concluded, but that's really a highlight for me.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Saida, please.
Yes, can I include Buenos Aires, Nairobi Constitution conventions in this highlight as well? So
Of course.
for me, it's definitely I was fortunate to spend some time in Kenya actually before Buenos Aires with some of the delegates who couldn't make it to Buenos Aires, but I'm glad that we were able to have two concurrent conventions in Buenos Aires and Nairobi, and that was historic moment, not just for the Cardano community, but I think for humanity. And I came into the Cardano community with so after watching Charles' TED Talk in 2014, and where he talked about banking unbanked, and also talked about the future, the decentralized future, and that became a reality with the Constitution. And I'm incredibly honored to play this role, to play a small part in this decentralized future, and future is now. So that is definitely my highlight. I couldn't stop crying, especially when Charles started to cry. So that was really emotional moment, one of best moments of my life. So that was personally, it was a great moment for us. And also 3 of our Cardano Japan Council members were actually in Buenos Aires, and we wore Japanese traditional clothing, and it was just incredible moment for us. And after that, we actually went back to Japan and organized a series of events. So we called it a Cardano Constitution tour, and we went from Hokkaido, the northern part of Japan, to Tokyo, Nagoya, Osaka, Fukuoka. So in many different places, we held meetups to teach about the Constitution and what we talked about in Buenos Aires and Nairobi, and encourage people to participate in the governance process. And that, I believe that it helped with the ratification of the Constitution on chain as well. So these events, and we get to speak about the Constitution, historic moment, and also encouraging everyone in the Cardano Japan community to participate is a definite highlight for us.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Jose.
Well, I agree that pinpointing one single highlight that's very hard. It's more of an everyday showing up, figuring stuff out. If you're expecting to know what lies ahead in this journey, I guess that would be probably the biggest disillusion. It's an everyday thing. It's about keeping yourself updated, keeping yourself educated all the time. You have to learn so many things. The Constitution anticipates this work to be that way. So you need to have at least some level of understanding from technical aspect, from the legal aspects, from the trade aspects. There's many phases to interpretation of the Constitution. Of course, being there in the constitutional ratification in Buenos Aires and Nairobi was just amazing. It's absolutely emotional. I'd say that, the first time that we got to vote was very emotional as well, for the constitutionality of governance action. And in the beginning, there were more info actions that were, didn't have much of an impact. They were in terms of on-chain consequences. So it helped us out a little bit to get ourselves more familiar with the process. As Jenny said, setting ourselves our internal processes, getting to know each other, even though we knew each other within the Intersect team. So I have to clarify that the Intersect Council team, Constitutional Council, it's not made up of Intersect employees. So we are community members that were elected from within Intersect's membership, and we just stepped up, and we've been working there. We were very, very vocal about having a good degree of independence. So our votes are absolutely independent of what the board of Intersect or what the staff of Intersect. We have not gotten any influence from them. And probably what I would have loved to learn, to circle back to that question, things that I would have loved to know before I stepped into this work, is that it's a lot of work. And we've seen some members get a little bit of fatigue, so they kind of have to step back, regain their feet, and then come back. So yeah. I used to be actually a promoter of having single individuals as members, occupying one of the seats. And today, knowing what I know, I think that is too ambitious. It's too much work, and too much diversity of knowledge, and too much experience that you would have to know to have. Having conversation with others enriches your own understanding all the time. This has been a very particular and unique time in which we have been performing this work, because it's been a precedent-setting phase. So every time we vote, we're also setting precedent. We're saying, okay, this is the way to go as we understand it. And then you have to also be consistent. So the second time you vote, you have to look back and say, well, how is it that I voted on this kind of situation? Well, I took this path. Is that still valid? Do I still think, wait, are we going to break precedent or not? So there's many things, small things even, like voting as soon as a governance action comes alive, or voting more towards the end. So, for instance, in our case, we said we're always going to try to vote the latest that we can. And the reason is that we do not want our vote to influence the DREPs. So we do provide we provide a vote, but we try to do it the latest that we can, so that we get any input from the community that we're missing. We can give it to them. And we also, with our vote, do not influence the DREP's vote.
Clear. Well, thank you. Thank you. Matthew.
Yeah, okay, so highlights. So I think, a lot of, what's really meaningful about what we do and what I've done and been involved in the in IOG's voter group and its responsibilities as an ICC member is stuff that I do in a lot of ways in sort of my work at IO, which is understanding like important issues that rally people to work together, and sort of interpreting perspectives and trying to articulate positions in a way that brings people together and facilitates shared understanding and all that kind of stuff. So that's a large part of like the work that I do. I'm the comms sort of specialist member on the ICC on our voter group internally. But for me, the highlight, I'm probably the least technical person in our internal voter group at IO. And for me, the highlight is, being one of a member of a multi-sig that, whose votes actually go, on chain and have this sort of this really important impact and really important role in Cardano governance in such a crucial and pivotal early period. So for me, that's been the highlight, is just getting to be a part of that and getting to actually have a direct impact, relatively direct impact on chain. So that's my highlight, I think.
Nice. Thank you there, Matthew, for sharing. I think, yeah, Oscar.
Yes, so I learned about during the 7 months since we starting the ICC and Cardano governance. I think respecting each other is very important. This is what I'm running from our whole governance system, because the beginning of our session, Zeta were explanation what is the traditional democracy and what is the blockchain governance is different. Traditional governance is 51% winner is takes it all, and 49% people is to lose, and they left the system. But blockchain governance is different. We choose this type of political system. So governance is the basically political system, and this is the basically liquid democracy. Yes. So there may be malicious sector in governance in the future, but however, it's important to recognize that at its core, those who engage in passionate debate within Cardano governance do so because they genuinely care about the ecosystem and want to see it thrive. So that said, governance is inherently political. I've witnessed community members get hurt during the heated discussion and unfortunately leave the community as a result. So this is very sad point about governance. So while handling the governance action effectively is important, the most critical aspect of governance is respecting and striving to understand each other's perspectives. Governance is not about achieving overwhelming majorities. It's about building a system that also listens to and reflects the voice of the minority. So reflect the various opinion involved in our within ecosystem. So this is what I learned during the 7 months in Cardano governance.
Yeah, thank you so much there. Taking into consideration also the minority. Yeah, thank you for that. Nicholas.
Yeah, very well said. And I mean, just one of the biggest highlights in general is, and I'm not joking here, right, is to have the privilege to really serve the Cardano community alongside 6 other really talented and amazing constitutional committee members. And if you really break it down, being part of the constitutional committee is really serving the Cardano community by interpreting the constitution and doing what's right. So this is the highlight. I think Jose mentioned it, like it's a day-to-day thing, right? So there's new things coming up, new governance actions that can come up any minute. Who knows what governance action awaits us after this call, right? But if I then also need to say one thing that's really a highlight for me is the ratification of the Plomin Hard Fork governance action, because that actually then turned on the full governance model on Cardano, where DREPs then actually have a role to play and not just vote on info governance actions. So that was also a highlight for me, that we saw the approval from the ICC and the SPOs for this governance action, and yeah, which now allowed also then the update to the constitution. Now the budget, the treasury withdrawals could happen as well. So this, right, that we had this successful transition from the interim to the current phase. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much there, Nicholas, for sharing that. Jenny.
I'll mention a couple of like team highlights that definitely come to my head. One was the first time we used our beautiful voting script. That was really cool. That was like super, super cool. I think that was a huge highlight. And the other one was the first time we didn't agree, and we had a dissenting, opinion, and it made us feel so mature. It was like, this is so important for us. So we celebrated it, and we were really proud of ourselves that we were, we were doing what we thought was what we're here to do. It's not just, just following what the loudest voices say. It's about, just making sure that because our rationale is probably the biggest gift that we can leave behind to the community. And when you rob the community from those rationales by just simply agreeing to everything, then it's like, this is perspective, right? The perspective that's going to help us grow and get to other people in a broader perspective. So yeah, definitely dissenting opinion was something that we celebrated. It was hard because obviously, you tried to get a point across, and it feels good when you agree, but it also feels really good when we can move forward and we can And then that followed another one, which was like we had a dissenting opinion, and then we also had an abstain, and then we had, and it was like, okay, that was even like bigger. So yeah, those two were definitely team highlights. So I put those out there because they involve everybody, and I know everybody felt the same way.
Beautiful.
And if I may, Jenny, just to add on that one, maybe a highlight, a very personal highlight is that the first time that I changed my mind because someone else's input. I came from, I've been here a long time, SIP 1694, then drafting the Constitution. Then, so when I came to the decision, I felt very confident on my opinion. And then we had a big argument, big discussion, not just within the team, but also with the other members of the Interim Constitutional Committee. And then I realized I was not right. There was another way. So that was a personal moment for me of growth, and that's also something that I want to bring to the conversation. It's a journey of personal growth. So you will definitely not leave this position being the same person. You will definitely grow because it's so much diversity, so many problems that you can anticipate, so much education that you have to go through, so many rich conversations, and so many quality people that you have to interact with, both at a professional and a personal level. Sometimes it's about relying on others about something that you don't know. I'm not a technical person, so that's usually the case. I need to go to technical people and ask questions. But also sometimes you're tired, or sometimes you're down, or sometimes you lose people along the way. So there's a word about a low light. It's a highlight, negative highlight, and that's probably when we lost Einstein.
Yeah, no, I totally get you there. I'd love to hear from others as well, because I do understand that the journey is not as straightforward as some people may think it is. So I'd also love to hear from Emergo. I'd love to hear from IOG and from Oscar and also Sierra. What situations have you encountered, let's say, of diverse opinions within the respective teams? And how did you dealt with that? Because for people who are thinking of stepping into this role, it is always good to give that sort of an insight, just so they understand it's not as straightforward as it may look. Let's start with you, Sir Murasaki.
Thank you. I kind of echo what Jose said. It's very challenging. It's not really straightforward. I think really classic discussion that we encountered when we make rationalization was that, so we got legal guy really purely looking into governance action from constitutional point of view. Mm-hmm. However, like that person is not well equipped with technical understanding. So when thinking about constitution, like metadata, or like what sets of information has to be stored based on constitution, the legal person doesn't have good depth of understanding what makes specific government action as constitutional. So there's always a very intense discussion between legal person and technical person, so that they kind of finally get together. But in the very beginning of discussion, they sort of like have a very, very different view from the pure constitutional point of view. Maybe one governance action could be constitutional, but if you're really looking into a technical element, then it is otherwise, right? So I think that's one classic discussion. We actually had many of discussion along this line. So it's really elevate people's skill set, because I think without this, whole governance constitutional thing, probably the legal guy at Imago didn't really elevate his understanding in the technical area, like, IPFS and immutability and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. But same goes for technical people, right? The technical people probably didn't touch this legal constitutional area. So it was actually pretty fun to see the discussion in the middle of the discussion. And also we have sort of business people involved. And I think specifically the language, when we rationalize things, there's a lot of revision that we have to go through, because constitution, the legal person is going to draft it, then has to be reviewed internally, and then what would be the right language, because everyone is looking into constitution and rationalization. So as elected ICC member, we have to do it right. So another classic discussion that we have is what would be the appropriate language for the rationalization. So those are the two usual conversation, and yet quite interesting conversation that we had for any governance action.
Yeah, wow, thanks a lot for sharing that, because again, it's not all straightforward, and it's really good to understand. And now we're learning as well, even Emergo, internally, Emergo has clearly processes set up, but also there, it's not always as, let's say smooth. Let's see, Sarah, I think we wanted to hear from Sarah, and then Matthew, and then we can move to Oscar, please.
Sure. So at Cardano Japan Council, we've had, in a few occasions, we've had disagreements, right? And we believe in two principles. First is independent decision making. So we, some of us have a loud, are louder, and they have bigger voice, and others are more, quiet, tight. But regardless of that, we make decisions independently. Like, we have our own decisions, and we don't influence each other to the extent that you're not making independent decisions. So yes, like I've changed my opinions a few times. Like Jose said, I've been learning from other members, and but in the end, not because that person said it, because I'm convinced that the opinion of the others are better and more correct interpretation of the Constitution. So we have that as a principle. And second is mutual respect. So I've been in the minority opinion several times, but because we respect each other, because we understand that other people are also thinking deeply and making their own decisions. And if I'm in the minority decision and it's not reflected, and we can still live with it, because we have so much respect for the other members. So I think these two principles helped us guide some difficult decisions, and there were quite a lot of discussions, and sometimes we reach an agreement, sometimes we don't, but we still respect each other, and we live. And once we decide as a council, then we are fully behind that opinion, regardless of whether you're in the minority or majority. You're a team, we're a team, and we're fully behind that decision. So that's something we're trying to do. We can do better, but I think that's something we can be proud of.
Wow, and rightfully so. Thank you. Matthew, can we start with Matthew and then end with Oscar on this one?
Sure. Yeah. So unexpected things, or short food bumps. I suppose. Yeah. One thing I've learned is, which, I mean, we knew this before, and I suppose maybe it's something to prepare people for. Even if you have to, especially if you're like an organization with a lot of sort of moving internal parts and people who need to approve things and different sort of stakeholders and interests and perspectives to take into account. Like, you really have to have a pretty robust process. There's a lot of different ways of, especially I'm learning more, and I knew this before, but I'm learning even more. There's a lot of different ways to be an ICC member. Sort of more formal, less formal, different kinds of operations, different kinds of sort of perspectives and interests that have to be involved in functions. But I think something that everybody does share is that at the end of the day, you have to get a vote out, right? And it has to be one that you have a rationale for, that is strong, and that people who are going to disagree with you in the community have to be able to look at that and say, like, okay, even if I disagree about this, even if I'm disappointed in the outcome or angry about the outcome, like if I look at the rationale, I'm not saying, these people were irresponsible, or these people, are sort of like abusing the Constitution or the role that they've been given by the people who voted for them. And so I think that's one thing that I would stress to any potential sort of people who are considering this, especially if you do get elected, is to think really carefully about your processes. And you can save yourself some stress that way, because it is really significant that there's that sort of hard output at the end of the day. It's not just talk. It's not just sort of a lot of that intermediate stuff, which is important, but there's a hard outcome, and that kind of constrains you and ultimately is the crucible that's going to end up demonstrating what you are as an ICC member. And
Exactly. I love that indeed. So basically, it's like where you have the Constitution that governs the way, the Constitution that governs the way we govern Cardano in general. On a CC level, you have your own processes or a document that outlines how the decision-making process should be handled. Guess.
Yep. Yeah,
Awesome.
and it's going to be different. One thing that I did want to just mention as well. I know I think Jose and maybe Nico were saying that they thought it would be hard or impossible potentially for individuals to play this role, and I wanted to dissent from that, and that I don't know, and I'd like to see it tried. I think that potentially somebody with the right amount of initial implicit knowledge, very competent, super experienced, and has a fair amount of time on their hands. Like I'd like to see that tried. That just goes to my point that it does seem like there's a really wide array of ways to be an ICC member, and at the end of the day, if you can get out, and at the end of the day, what you have to do is get out votes that are consistent with the Constitution and that have rationales that explain yourself as such to the people who have elected you and can also unelect you, right? So yeah.
Great point there, by the way. Absolutely. Oscar.
In case of the Eastern Cardano Council, we have an internal communications plan in place. So if any member determines a governance action to be unconstitutional, they draft a rationale based on the listening, based Cardano Constitution. So this becomes the basis for discussion. So if we reach full consensus during discussion, we proceed with voting. But if not, we publish the rationale, including opposing views, because the recording some counterpart argument is important. So although our consortium has only one official vote, but we believe it is perfectly natural for internal opinion to vary significantly. So yeah. But we always address based our internal communications plan. But I didn't know in the future we make some public our communications plan on GitHub. Yeah, but yeah.
There's also a document that you guys use to govern your decision-making process. Perhaps we can share that, and it's a public document, so perhaps we can share that in the chat so that the viewers can view that on their own. We just have two final segments, everyone, and the final segment is going to be really short, but the one before that, what tools have you guys developed really to help that whole process? So, and I mean, so far we've started since last year, September. Does anyone know how many governance actions have there been so far? Because I know you guys spend a lot of time.
Of course, Denisio, we all know that.
Okay,
It's 12 governance actions to be precise.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I think include the testnet governance section, I think 14? No, 12?
So that you mean the info actions probably or not? Including those
Got it. Okay.
would be okay. That's interesting because there's a lot of time that you spend just deliberating and discussing within your teams. What the different opinions are, and to have, let's say, 12 of them in the past 7 months. That's more than once per month. That's many hours. Not only your personal review, but you also have the team deliberation, basically. So a lot of time that goes in, plus you have to follow everything that goes on within the ecosystem as well. So making sure that you're up to date, remain up to date. Definitely something not to be underestimated. But what tools? I'm curious. I believe someone wanted to share a tool that was developed. Let's see here. Nicholas, was that you or was that someone else?
I can share the framework that we use to assess governance actions. We've actually also put that on the Cardano Foundation governance website. So we've outlined here what is our approach of reviewing governance actions. It's not everything in detail, but it's a rough plan, right? So 7 steps that we go through when we assess governance actions. And I think the most important thing also that Jose mentioned and Sarah, right? If we have dissenting opinions, there is room in the metadata standard for constitutional committee votes for dissenting opinions, right? So it is not just something that is crucial for us internally, but it's also crucial to put that into our rationale so people can understand what are the different aspects. And I think it's also important to mention that in the metadata, usually the different councils also indicate what was their internal voting outcome, right? So you have the information about how many people voted. For example, in the Cardano Foundation case, it's 7. And we had cases now, for example, the net change limit info actions where we had, one abstain, 1 yes, 3 no. And so it was definitely a diverse set of opinions. And as also Matthew said, the most important thing, if you consider being part of the Constitutional Committee in the future, if you want to apply for the election, I think it's important to look at all of the great materials that have been provided by the Atlantic Council in their GitHub repo, by Eastern Cardano Council. We also have a repo. So there's a lot of things that you can already use, and also look at the rationales from all of the council members, right? So this is what we use. And then also just, I've never shared this, and I hope I'm not getting into trouble, but this is our internal Kanban board for governance actions.
Oh, we use Kanban too. So
yeah, and here you can
really
see.
helpful.
Lucky us, we don't have anything to review at the moment, but we've just completed the net change limit actions, and that's what we use. So, and it goes through the different steps, right? Initial assessment, full review, then we need to get the executives committee approval. Yeah, and then of course legal and comms need to give their thumbs up, as always. And then the creation of the metadata and the transaction. So yeah, that's from our side.
Yeah, is there anyone else on the panel who would like to share, let's say, any tool that you use within your team, within your councils, to help govern the process, your decision-making process?
We also use Kanban. We use we communicate in our chat. We use Kanban. I guess it's probably a little different for you guys because you have more levels there. For us, it's just a little, just to keep ourselves accountable. And of course, we have great tech people in our team, and they're always working on how to make our voting experience better. So that definitely works. So our voting script, and we're working on a new one right now. This can make it even better. So that's always exciting. So Kanban definitely for all the rationales and ticketing and making sure that we don't lose anything, and we we can work on multiple different actions at the same time and not go crazy.
Exactly. I love that. Okay, so the thing is, I'm pretty sure that during the election, there's going to be people, current members, and that's one of my last questions is from the list of candidates right now. So you all, which of you are planning to, let's say, apply again for the next term, and who's not going to apply? Jose, will you be will the sorry, will the current set of people within the Intersect uh, Council, Constitutional Council, will they be submitting or at least going for
Well,
re-election?
so I can't give you a straight out answer, sorry, just because what would happen is that if Intersect goes forward and decides to participate in the new election, then it would have to be on a group of Intersect members that put themselves forward as candidates to that team, and then that team would need to go to the overall election. So I'm absolutely 100% sure that it's not going to be the same group of people. Some people might be interested in continuing participating in Intersect's Council. Some of them have already dropped for personal reasons or for any, so they're no longer part of the initial team. Mm-hmm. So we'll see who steps forward. Personally, I'm interested in keeping myself involved in governance. I have decided not to continue in the civics committee that I'm currently chairing until the end of this month. And I've decided to concentrate my efforts on the constitutional committee. I do not know if it's going to be within the Intersect seat or not. Most likely, we'll all create a consortium or participate in a consortium that consolidates to put that candidacy forward. But I do think that it is very important to keep continuity because the experience that we built should not be lost. So whether it's me or it's others, it's important to have some of the members that are already there to continue participating.
Exactly, for that, the kind of the experience that has already been gained, obviously. Right. Yes, good. Absolutely great. I'd love to hear from more on the panel as well in terms of what are your plans after, let's say, for the upcoming election. But I know I'm also conscious of the time, so perhaps would have to leave that at that. What advice would you, as panel members, give for new people who are considering applying for the seat during the coming elections? I'm going to look at Matthew and then to Mr. Murasaki.
Advice, I would think. I think it was Nico who mentioned this earlier, or I can't remember who mentioned it. But looking at the existing rationales and sort of the history, if you can, of some of the existing governance actions, both in sort of the public conversation as much as you can, like going back to the sort of Twitter archives, and also looking at some of the great materials. We at IO haven't done this, I don't think, at all. But some of the things that CF, Atlantic Council, and others have done in terms of documentation of their process, think about adopting some of those things, building your own process. And then I would actually, I'm just sort of like making this up on the fly, but I would think about sort of constructing what your process would look like, your team, the sort of people that you want to partner with, and then actually start to think about some of the governance actions that come up and sort of do some like shadow process, like, okay, how would we vote on this? And start to prepare in that way. And then you can even, and some of the existing ICC members might find this kind of annoying, but you could even sort of, insert yourself into public conversation as you lead up to the election and say, like, hey, this is how we as candidates would think about this kind of decision, just to give people a sort of preview of what you would be like as an ICC member. That's maybe the sort of like high investment way of doing things. But I think if you were really trying to position yourself to be a good ICC member, and one that is very compelling to the community, I think that would be a great way of doing it. I would just also encourage, I think a lot of the existing ICC members are great. And so I think especially if you feel that you have a good thing going, and that you're doing well, if you have that sort of confidence that you're serving Cardano well, I'd like to encourage you guys also not to feel that you have to step away and allow there to be some competition in the election as well. So that's my advice, I suppose.
Wow, thank you so much, Mr. Murasaki.
Thank you. Well, I think to apply for the position like being a council or ICC member, I think really need the right sets of the team. It's a very tough job for one person to run a job. So you need technical person, you need legal person. So wide variety of experience is really important to carry out this job. And also, I think having a definition of independency also helps. I think we tended to think at Imago to have sort of ultimate independency. We didn't really interact with ICC members. So that's sort of the idea of having independency that we had in our mind. At the end of the time, we tend to think like, okay, it's not really bad idea. I mean, obviously it's not a bad idea to speak with fellow ICC members, but at the beginning, we tend to think the independency to carry out this job is to really have independent voice. So I think having the definition or think about how you approach to carry out this job is really important before taking up this job, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And would you say, because you say you didn't do it because of the mindset in terms of just wanting to be independent, that's why you didn't contacted or consulted other payers? Would you say, or would that be an advice you'd give to others, as in seek or consult other ICC members?
So it was rather radical independency that we thought about in the beginning. But obviously, like we learned, right? Just merely talking to your fellow ICC members is not really break your autonomy or independency.
Exactly.
But like when we thought about this important job for Cardano in the beginning, our idea of independency is as an entity have its own entity voice without any influence by other council, let's say, not in a malicious way or not in a bad way, but that was the definition that we sort of reached, right? So so I think that's one way to think about it. I'm not really saying discussion is not important, but I think having, like, you might want to think about what is independency. I think it's worth thinking about it. So I'm not really suggesting either or, but I think having the idea is probably very important before taking up this job.
Okay, understandable. Is this something that Emergo will change, let's say, towards the future? Like, let's say maybe extending an arm, collaborating, or maybe even consulting other councils? Or did you say no, we'll just maintain the flow as we've always done?
Oh, that's probably a part of the reason like I'm here with fellow ICC members, and I started to have, I think it was a couple months back, maybe a month, 6 weeks back. We started to consult with ICC members and started to not really changing our decision, but like taking up different views, right? So that's what we have started. But at the very, very beginning, we had our idea of independency was quite different.
Nice. Yeah, great. Looking forward to more of that, by the way, also in the new term. I'd love to hear from you.
Inicio, maybe I'll jump in here just for a very brief something that we have not mentioned, that it's there is a space that we share every couple of weeks, in which we all members can or cannot, it's not mandatory, but it's a space in which we agree to come together and discuss anything that's worth discussing. Whoever wants to show up shows up and provides perspectives on things that they want to discuss. It's voluntary, of course, and we also have a space which is open office for talking to the community. Anyone can show up, ask questions, provide perspectives. So those two spaces in which we consult with each other and enrich each other's perspectives, and we do the same thing, open, facing the community.
Thank you there. Absolutely. Great also to know that there are platforms being facilitated, especially for these kind of things, also in terms of community engagement.
Denisio, I wanted to say I have to head out now because I have to get to another meeting. I suppose Seba encouraged me to have last words. I don't know what my last words are really, except I suppose it's a privilege to get to be in this role, even just to get to come and talk in this kind of venue with all of you guys. Appreciate you all being here, and this has been a really interesting discussion. I hope that there are other new ICC members, either for this next tranche or maybe in years to come, who are watching this. And yeah, it's been an honor. So I'm going to head off. Thank you guys, and hope you have a good rest of the call.
Thank you so much, Matthew. It's been an honor having you on as one of the 7, of course, representatives. So thank you for sharing your perspectives. Appreciate it. Okay, I think just to close up, we wanted to end with Sarah, if I'm correct.
Yes. This is about advice to new potential CC members. I think it's important to understand how much work you'll be putting in. So I think most of our fellow ICC members underestimated the work required for this role, and it's an incredible honor for me personally, but also for the members of Cardano Japan Council. We care about Cardano, we care about the community because our, I guess, economic life and social life is intertwined with Cardano, and the stake is high. So we care, and then that's why we are here. And coming back to your previous question, I think we will be staying, or we will run for the re-election, at least as Cardano Japan Council. Maybe our internal members might change slightly, but I think the stake is so high for the Japanese community because we are the biggest community in both in number of members, but also in ADA holdings. So it's important for us to have a say in this constitutional committee and really have that safeguard for the Cardano community. And because we care, it's basically a volunteer work. Most of the funds we use for the air gap machine and also holding events for the community. So it's basically unpaid work, many hours. And if you really care about the community, then I think it's a really fulfilling, meaningful role. But I guess you want to understand that you want to know what you're getting yourself into first, and then apply for the election. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Before we close, any final thoughts from the remaining council members?
Yeah, if I may, one last thing. Of course, there's always one last thing. We currently have 2 governance actions that try to define the net change limit for Cardano. And both of them currently do not meet the ratification threshold. So if you're a DREP or if you're delegated to a DREP and they have not yet voted, right? I'm not pressuring anyone to vote. I would just encourage you to do so. Maybe that is pressuring a bit. And maybe ask your DREP to, have they considered to vote, because it's so important for us as an ecosystem, not just to have a net change limit, right? That's important, but it's important that the DREPs that are registered on chain actually also participate in the voting, because that's why they registered, I assume, so that you can cast your votes and have your voice heard. So please make sure to vote on these very important governance actions if you haven't yet. And you can find that in the amazing community explorers. You can check out the governance actions on Cardano Scan, Sea Explorer, AdaStat, and of course on GovTool, on tempo.vote. And then this new amazing website, what is it? Governance. Jose, you probably know what I'm talking about.
Governance Space.
Exactly, Governance Space. And participate. We need more participation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Anyone else from the council?
I'll join in. I'll join the campaign with Nico. Please participate. It's it takes all of us, whether you're a delegate or somebody delegating. Make sure just stay active and make it part of your everyday thing when you show up to Cardano. This is part of why I hold ADA. It's not just price go up, because if you've been around, price doesn't go up all the time. So there's got to be other things that move you. And this governance thing is something that we're building together, that it requires a lot of us to, put your hands on deck, and also encourage people to run for the next CC. We really need you. We need you. The Cardano Atlantic Council, we've been just debating to stay or not. And it's all been based on the level of participation. How much do we see out there? How many people are there willing to step up and do this? So, we don't want to be here forever, but we definitely want to make sure that Cardano, somebody's doing this. So please grab people around you, try to form some teams. You'll be surprised. The Atlantic Council, we never worked together before like this. So this is an experience, and we're definitely a diverse group. We don't all think the same. So you'll be surprised people you can work with. And it's quite the journey. So I definitely encourage you to go out there and try it out. Try it out. It is work, but it is rewarding. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And if I may, Denicio, I just want to, I would my advice to anyone considering this, putting themselves forward for this role, make sure you have your motivations right, to do it for the right reasons. Be aware that it is a long-term commitment, so you're going to be either 1 or 2 years committed to this one. So make sure you can go the way you can, get to the end of it, upholding that responsibility. It is an investment in time, of course. It is very fulfilling if you're doing it because of the right reasons. But it's also you will be more visible in terms with the good and bad. So you will be more prone to being criticized. You will be more prone to, someone being interested in your own cybersecurity at home or at work or whatever. So make sure that you have that robustness and resiliency from the personal and technical and economical standpoint.
Yes. Let's see, I think that was it. So I think we can wrap it up with that last word here. Governance is not easy, but governance is important, because the thing is, we're all citizens of Cardano blockchain, and the Cardano blockchain is governed by every single ADA holder. Every one of you have a say. There's having 7 of you here today with us, representing the 7 seats of the Constitutional Committee on Cardano, has been an honor. Listening, learning from your perspectives, from where did it all started in terms of the SIP 1694, as Oscar explained, as Nicholas explained, Jose, Sierra, Jenny, as Mr. Murasaki explained, and also Matthew, who had to drop just earlier before we end, it is important that everyone participate, because only if everyone participate is when governance really works, is when we're able to move forward. The call to action, for example, with the net change limit, is just one example. Yes, we need to get that as a community, as a collective, over the finish line. So that means get a hold of your of your DREP, your delegated representative. Ask them, did you vote or not? And let's do this together. It's only together that we're able to make it. And there will be challenges along the way, yes, but those challenges are there to be braved. And with those challenges, we all learn. As Murasaki mentioned earlier, he said, it's been a process and we've learned from it. I think everyone echoed that. Jenny echoed that as well. But yes, don't be scared. If you're thinking about stepping up in this role for the next elections, do so. Inquire. Reach out to one of the members here on the panel. Ask them, how was your experience? Take their advices. You've heard some of them have developed tools that helped the internal decision making process from each council. Inquire of that, learn from that, take learnings and develop your own that would help you along the way. You don't have to do that alone. A lot of this has already been done for you, and a lot of it has been tested and proved to work. So, with that said, I do want to thank each and every one of you: Oscar, Nicholas, Saira, Jose, Mrs. Murasaki, Jenny, and Matthew Caps from IOG Council. Thank you all for joining today's session. And until next time.